CNN Shimon Prokupecz starts us off from the hostel on Manhattan's Upper West Side. What's the latest you're hearing from authorities?
Yeah, so Anderson, investigators spent the day here behind me at this hostel, focusing on the fourth floor where some of the folks who are staying here told us the individual was. Investigators spent this day here questioning some of them. The suspect entered Central Park here after the brazen early morning killing. We now know that police have reviewed footage of what appears to be the gunman exiting the park nearby on West 77th Street. And this new video obtained by CNN shows a person police believe to be the gunman riding westbound on West 85th Street. 7 a.m. video captures what appears to be him on his bike coming around this corner, heading this way. And as you can see in the video, he's not wearing his backpack. 18 blocks north, police began to search this hostel Wednesday afternoon. The NYPD released these images of what they're calling a person of interest checking into the hostel. Police released the first clear images of a man they want to question in connection to the murder. They say the man stayed here at this hostel in a room with others on the fourth floor. Police were back here today speaking to people who have been staying here. We're told by the folks who are staying here that they saw the police on the fourth floor. We're also told by hotel management that when you check in to this hostel, they do ask you for ID. Police say employees at the hostel say the man almost never lowered his mask or hood. And a law enforcement official tells CNN the shooter used a fake New Jersey ID to check in, a full 5 days before the murder. Another new piece of evidence, this video, time-stamped at 6:15 a.m., shows the suspected gunman leaving the 57th Street subway station just 3 blocks from the scene of the crime. 30 minutes later, Thompson would be fatally shot. Then there's the words delay and depose found on a live round and a shell casing at the scene. Are they signs of a motive? Police now exploring whether they are a reference to a derogatory phrase leveled at the insurance industry for denying claims. Investigators also have a water bottle from the shooter left behind at the scene. CNN learned earlier today that it yielded a single smudged fingerprint.
Shimon, what are, investigators focused on specifically tonight?
So it's interesting, Anderson, because our team, we've been going up and down Broadway and some of the surrounding areas trying to find surveillance video. And even late tonight, just about an hour ago, we were a little downtown towards 85th Street. We're at 103rd Street. We saw detectives going into different shops and restaurants, still looking for video to try and find out where the suspect is. It seems like they have a pretty good idea of when he got here, how he got here, some of his movement at that time. But at this point, it just seems they don't really have any idea, or at least they're not telling us of where he went, where he is. And it's a big mystery. You know, a city of this size with so many cameras everywhere, it's still very interesting that they still have no idea where he is, where he went, and they're still, to this hour, out here looking for video of where he went. Anderson?
Shimon Prokupecz, appreciate it. With me here tonight, CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller. Also joining us, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and Brianna Fox. She's a professor of criminology at the University of South Florida and a former FBI special agent. John, at this point, at this hour, I know you've got remarkable sources. What's the latest you're hearing? What stands out to you at this hour?
That he was here way longer than we believed. We thought he probably got to that hostel, stayed a couple of days for the specific purpose of just going there that day and doing that shooting. But now he knows he comes in on the 24th. So he's here about 10 days. He's doing reconnaissance at the Hilton. He's moving around the city. He's seen it at McDonald's. He's in taxis. He has to obtain this bike at some point. And the police don't know when or where that happened. So he's been busy preparing. But we have to consider, why is he at that hostel? He's staying in a room for 4 people with 2 roommates, so he's the third person. Here's a guy who never lets down his mask or takes down his hood, or both at the same time, which is why we only have that limited moment of that photograph. So he's committed, he's professional acting in terms of discipline, but he's obviously operating on a shoestring in terms of finance.
Well, also, why spend 10 days in New York City knowing there's cameras everywhere, knowing if he's going to commit this assassination, that this is all going to be looked at.
Well, because he is clearly aware of that. When you look at what the work the NYPD is doing, and these video canvas teams are among the best in the world because they do this not just on the big cases, they do this on all the cases because the video is what the district attorney expects. What juries want to see is, can you show me a movie of his whole day? And in a case like this, it's essential. As Shimon told us, they have him here, they have him there. They're back out there tonight trying to plug the gaps of where can we get him in the space between these two captures. They never found, not yet, that money shot where he takes down the hood and takes up figuring like, this has nothing to do with what my crime is going to be. His discipline of staying that way was incredible.
Except for this flirtatious moment, which is why he took down the mask.
And that's because, he's there and, the woman at the counter is laughing with him and she says, let me see your face. Now, is that because she's looking at the driver's license he's handed her and she wants to see, is this guy the guy in the picture? But it wasn't described that way. It was they were having a flirtatious moment and he pulls it down and he gives the big smile. And that one informal moment between two human beings remains at this moment the most significant clue to date in this whole case.
Andrew, the cell phone left behind, why would it be so hard for law enforcement agencies to get into a phone?
Yeah, so this is something that law enforcement at every level has been struggling with for the last 10 years. Anderson, and that's because of the ubiquity of end-to-end encryption and these incredibly secure kind of locking programs that we have on most phones. Even when, thinking back to my own time in the FBI, even just dealing with, let's say, iPhones, when we would take in an iPhone on a significant case, whether or not we could get into it had to do not only with the model of phone that it was, but also the specific iOS version that it was running. So you might be able to get into an iPhone 7 running iOS whatever, but you couldn't get into one if it was running a different iOS. So it's a very complex matrix of hardware and software. And that's kind of what determines whether or not law enforcement has the capability to get past that locking mechanism and essentially open up the phone. And once you get into the phone, then you're dealing with the problem of encrypted content. So some users are not as disciplined and they keep things like text messages and those sort of records on their phone so you can read it off the device, but others are better at having messages expire and automatically deleted and things like that. So it's far more complicated than it seems from the outside.
Professor Fox, what does it tell you that the shooter apparently was in New York 10 days before the killing? And, to John's point, staying in a room with other people, obviously on a budget, but not hiding even in some cheap hotel, sharing a room with other people, exposing himself.
Yeah, it's really interesting behavior because he's obviously concerned about apprehension, but my take would be it's not necessarily because he's, thinking he's going to avoid apprehension forever. I think it has more to do with the fact that he doesn't trust law enforcement, doesn't trust the system. I think that was part of his motive to begin with. I think he actually is banking on the fact that he probably is going to get caught. That's why he left some of the messages that he did. But I think he thinks that the average citizen is going to take his side in this. I think he really views this as like a vigilante type of an act. And he's hoping that when and if, the cards come down for him, that he is going to have sympathetic jurors on his side.